For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's first week of player-run practices. It pretty much started the first week of June. USC is back to their conditioning and player-run practice schedule that they do in the summer. Now, this summer is a little bit different, at least for us, just because we're more limited than we were in years prior. We can't film or take any video of or take any photos of the player-run practices if they're on Howard Jones Field. If they're on Cromwell Field, we can kind of film some of it, take some photos, but right now they have no practices scheduled for Cromwell Field, so we're pretty much not going to be able to show you anything unless they go there. But so far, we're trying to see past the gates, trying to see what they're doing. But in that sense, Dan, what have been your observations of this week's player-run practices?
Well, I mean, we're concentrating on watching them coming and going, because the other change is that the way you can watch them on Howard Jones and Brian Kennedy Fields is you would go up into Locher Stadium on the stand at the corner and look over the fence. And what's happening now is they are technically scheduling the track practice at the same time as the PRPs. So once the quote track practice is starting, there's nobody there, but it's they reserve it for 4 hours. Then they close the gates. It's not an open public facility. So we got to watch a little bit of, the start of the PRPs, and it looks very much like the start of a regular spring practice, where you've got defense and they're on the turf at Brian Kennedy Field, and then you've got the offense with all the quarterbacks throwing and all the receivers catching the ball to start, and the offensive line down in their corner working on all their stuff. So, the coaches aren't here. The coaches were here at the end of, a little bit after 8 o'clock when they finished up with the inside strength and conditioning work, and then they transitioned to outside. So the coaches all come out with them, as do the strength and conditioning coaches. And then when they leave, they go into the PRP. So, a little different. Last year, I think we used to see them on Cromwell Field much more for their conditioning stuff, and you could with Cromwell, you can watch it through the fence. So we're not getting to see maybe quite as much. The other thing I think they're doing is all the players are staying pretty much for all the work. We saw the special teams leave a little early, like they always do. So it really looks like kind of a spring practice. I mean, it's very similar. It does look like they're working pretty hard, and they really do look like they're already, sweated up, if you want to, use the expression, by the time they get to the field. We had Jordan Iosefa just going by. We're not talking to them now, but he did say something about his hardest workout he's ever had. And you just never know what they're making that up or not. But you hear from people that they really, really are working really hard, and that's from people on the inside who watch the new kind of strength and conditioning regime. I will say this: watching the 5 or 6 or 7, they got a lot of guys on that strength and conditioning group go by in their black and white T-shirts that say on the back "Phone Booth Fight." They look like they'd probably do pretty well in a phone booth fight. I mean. And we all know how big, Aaron Osmus is, former NCAA, shot put champion. Got 4 or 5 guys that look like they're, as big as he is. So they got to, this would be a very good bodyguard group. If you needed bodyguards, call the USC strength and conditioning people, because got some really big guys. So we hadn't seen that whole crew together, the new crew, but a pretty impressive, physical group.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of working those guys hard, because when the short amount of practice we were able to see, a lot of the guys were kind of laying down in the end zone, so catching their breath, kind of recovering. And like you said, Jordan Iosefa came out and looked exhausted and kind of laughed and said, "Hardest workout of my life. I've never died so hard." So it seems like it was a hard practice, but we're also seeing the changes in their bodies from this new program with Aaron Osmus. What have you seen from the players that we've been able to watch coming in and out of the gates?
I think the ones that have been the most obvious right away are the defensive linemen, Jay Tufele, Marlon Tuipulotu, and Brandon Peely. All look like the baby fat is gone, or the extra weight that had them up, 315 to 320. It looks like mostly they're 305 to 310, and they just look quicker and leaner, and that's a good look. You don't see many guys that look like they're carrying a lot of extra weight. So you see, smaller guys who've gotten bigger, but you don't see the big guys who just look like they've got that, gut hanging over their belly or anything. You really don't see that. I think, we're not even sure who's running the whole nutrition thing right now after the new, football nutritionist left for Seattle. But somebody looks like they're doing a good job.
Yeah. As far as players that we saw return, Velus Jones is back. Matt Fink returned as well. Solomon Tuialapupu did not have cleats on. Is that concerning at this point? Because around this time last year, Solo told our team that he was going to be on the field soon, and yet here we are a year later, and he's still kind of working back and not 100%.
I don't know I don't know what to think, because he looks so good. I mean, he looks like if he walked out with an NFL franchise. I mean, he looks like, 6'2", 6'3", 250 pounds, and he just looks great. I mean, he looks like a linebacker is supposed to look. That he still has the flat bottom shoes on, doesn't have the cleats. I know they're being really careful with that foot, and I know there were times where they thought maybe he's ready to go, and he wasn't ready to go. And what we understand is it's one of those fractures that just takes a lot of time, and you don't want to break it down, by pushing too hard. So just trying to watch him, moving, and you can't really, be certain, what you're seeing. I think it's probably good at this point to take it very cautiously over the summer with him and try to get him back. He'd be a big plus. They've got a lot of athletes, a lot of bodies at linebacker, but he's an impressive, looking kid. So, but I don't think we know the answer.
Yeah. Two guys we haven't seen yet are Brew McCoy and Chris Steele. We did see those two hanging around USC during the elite camp on Wednesday, but they haven't showed their faces yet at player run practices. Do you know what's going on with that, Dan? Are they still trying to get things figured out before they get on the field?
Don't know. I think it's a good question. I think probably they're trying to maybe get through the process. I think they feel very good about one, and I think they got a chance on the other. But maybe as far as and right away. But maybe you don't want to give that sense of we're already assuming that it's going to happen, and maybe you're kind of a sense of we'll wait for the official decision or whatever. So. But other than that, don't have any insight into exactly, are they going to, be part of the June workouts? We don't know.
Yeah, so we'll keep you updated on that. Make sure to stay tuned to USC football. But another injury update we got was actually Clay Helton. It seems like he's having his own version of a Kevin Durant injury. What do you have to say today?
Well, it was an old bone spur, apparently, he said, that had created... I guess it broke loose behind his ankle and gave him a partial Achilles tear on the right side. I guess it happened a couple of months ago, and they kind of got him through until recently, and it got worse. And so I guess he was on crutches for 2 days, and then today was his first day on one of those little scooters that you could put your knee and your right. He's got his right foot, ankle, and Achilles are all in a boot, and he's got that up on. You put your knee on the. It's kind of like a one-legged scooter, and that gives him more mobility. And he says it's a whole lot better than being on the crutches. The plan, I guess, is he's got to stay off of it for 3 weeks. Surgery will be the only thing that'll really fix it, but he doesn't want. They won't do that until after the season. So the plan is to get him through this season, and 3 weeks they think will be enough to get him to have mobility, and then do the surgery after the season.
Yeah. So like we said, we're trying to get as much information and observations we can out of PRPs. It's hard, but we're trying to get the best info for you guys. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this week's player run practices?
A couple of things. I think when they go by you in a group, and you see that more often, they're not strung out, and they're not, they kind of come and go as a group, and they look like they impress you as, man, they're still young kids. I mean, these are guys with a lot of experience, but it's a young seeming team. They look like they're having a lot of fun. I mean, they look like they like one another, and that's a good thing. You get the sense from the people around them that everybody feels good about this team, and not in the, kind of a phony way that I thought they did last year, but that in a way of, we know we're better, we know we're going to be, hard to handle, and maybe we know it and nobody else knows it. They got kind of that sense where, last year is a great motivator and a big embarrassment and all the, and the kind of thing that people aren't going to be expecting us to be a USC football team this year. And I think they will be. And I think they're really pleased at how hard they're working, which I think says a lot of good things about Aaron Osmus and his staff, because I think they've developed a sense of, much like they did in the spring, I think the way they coached them up with, Graham Harrell and all the new guys on defense, kind of giving them a sense of, we're getting better, we're working hard, we can't do any more than we're doing. And I think they feel like the same way, in the off season and now in the summer. So they just have a good sense about them that is probably not necessarily what you would expect based on last year. So it's based more on, hey, we're doing we're doing everything we can possibly do to be as good as we can be. I mean, they clearly feel that. So it's easy to see that. I mean, they just have a lot of fun, and I think they're learning that if you compete hard every day in practice and everything you do in the weight room, you get a good sense about yourself. And that's the thing that's coming across, is they feel good about themselves. I don't think we ever felt that truly sense of last fall, that they felt good about themselves. I mean, they tried to talk it up like it was going to be okay, but you didn't think they really believed it. Now, looks like they think they believe it.
Yeah. We'll see as the summer progresses. That's going to wrap it up for USC's first player run practice, or the first week of player run practices. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.